Good morning, everybody, unless of course you're watching this video in the evening, in that case good evening, and you are watching Time Travel TV, and today we're going to about everyone's favourite Lord Protector, Oliver Cromwell. Now, we're going to skim over his early life because it's not very important, because he didn't do much, and also I've already made videos in that period of history. So yes, skim over it. He was born in 1599, got married in 1624, King Charles became king in 1625, and he first went to Parliament in 1628. That's Oliver Cromwell, not King Charles I. Now, 1628, Charles had already called two parliaments before that point, but they'd ended pretty badly because Charles and Parliament were not very compatible with each other. And the 1628 Parliament was no exception. What happened is that they were all sent home, and King Charles ruled for his personal rule, which lasted 11 years. He ruled without Parliament for 11 years. Anyway, so what happened is that towards the end he was running out of money. He needed some money to go off and kill some Scottish people, so he called Parliament again in the short Parliament in order to do some taxes. Anyway, it didn't go very well, so he was sent them all home and called them again in the long Parliament, which lasted a lot longer, by the way. This time, some MPs, including Oliver Cromwell, I think, gave the king something called the Grand Remonstrance, which is basically 10 reasons why they hated the king. Now, this made Charles very cross, because, I mean, if I had someone gave me a piece of paper saying 10 reasons why they hated me, that would make me cross too. So what happened is that Charles decided to go into Parliament with the army and arrest 5 members, although they had already pre-warned and they'd already gone home. Parliament and the king both raised an army. Then Charles, by this time he had left London, raised his standard and declared war. Now, it wasn't going too well for Parliament at first. It was pretty even Stevens at the start. And Cromwell, this is where he starts becoming a really key player. Because what happened was that he noticed how the Royalist cavalry was very effective, so he got some cavalry himself, and he managed to secure the whole of East Anglia. Coincidentally, that's where he came from. He was MP for Huntingdon. Anyway, so what happened is that he also reformed the army into the new model army, which was better organised, had proper uniforms, also had very good training. Also, they didn't promote people on status. For instance, they got rid of all lords and MPs from the army. Instead, they promoted them on ability. Coincidentally, Cromwell was only in the army because he was an MP, so he did himself out of a job. But they said, Cromwell, you're such a good guy, you can go back in the army. We're going to give you a job. We're going to make you a lieutenant general. And this made Cromwell very happy. And eventually, they won the Civil War. But it's only the first Civil War, remember? There's going to be some more later. Anyway, so they tried to do a deal with the king, and it was very difficult to do a deal with the king, and eventually he escaped, went to Scotland, raised another army, and invaded England. This made Parliament really cross, so they sent Cromwell in with the new model army, and they crushed him at the Battle of Preston. Now, they then decided to execute the king. You should really watch my video on the trial of King Charles for more information about that. And afterwards they thought, oh my god, what have we just done? We've just executed the king. What do we do now? And they said, oh my god, we've got no system of government. Help, help, help. So they were left with the Rump Parliament. Now, the Rump Parliament was supposed to be a parliament which would sit for a temporary amount of time and sort things out until they can do fresh, new elections. They established a Commonwealth, and it's a couple of other things. Well, they got rid of the laws, for instance, because that's really reminiscent of the old royalist days. They also did religious toleration, which was quite good. Anyway, Ireland wasn't very happy. They were rather keen on King Charles and the royalists in general, so they sent Cromwell over there with the new model army to go and crush them. We're going to hear that phrase a lot, by the way. So, Cromwell went with the new model army and sorted out the Irish, most famously or infamously at Wexford and Drogheda. Although I understand quite a few people call it Drogheda, which I'm not quite sure how it's pronounced, but I've always been taught Drogheda. Anyway, he's very unpopular in Ireland. Most people in Ireland would say that what he did amounts to war crimes. Although other people say that what he did has been exaggerated over time, but however you looked at it, he's left a massive impact on Ireland. When he came back to England, Scotland started kicking off, so he went to Scotland with the new model army to sort them out. And he managed to crush them as well, and we wouldn't get King Charles II just yet, because that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to put Charles's son on the throne, King Charles II, who he was going to be King Charles II. We'll talk about him in another video. Anyway, so they crushed the Scottish, and when he came back, he realised that the Rump Parliament had done absolutely nothing, except for passing one bill, which they were trying to pass, and which was saying to perpetuate their own existence. Now, this made Cromwell very cross, because they did nothing but try and make them last forever. So he walked in there with the army and dissolved the Rump Parliament, saying some very rude words to them. Now, does this sound familiar? Because it should do. Walking into Parliament with the army, dissolving them. Who else did that, I wonder? It's the King Charles did that, not only a few years beforehand. Anyway, so then they put a new parliament in, popularly known as the Barebones Parliament, who all did about as much as the Rump, except they voted to dissolve themselves and put Cromwell in charge. They said, Cromwell, do you want to be king? And Cromwell said, no, I don't want to be king. No, we fought so we don't have kings, silly. So they said, okay, do you want to be Lord Protector? And they said, what does that involve? He said, well, that involves everything to do with being a king, except you're not actually called a king, you're called Lord Protector. So he said, yeah, I'll do that. So that's what they passed the instrument of government which made Cromwell Lord Protector. And they put together a new constitution. Except Cromwell as Lord Protector will not be much different to Charles as king, because the first Protectorate Parliament Cromwell dissolved in 1655 and scrapped the constitution and put a military dictatorship in. This was called the Rule of Major Generals, and they divided England up into 12 sections, and each of them would be ruled by a different Major General. Now, some of them were better than others, but on the whole, it didn't really work, and they had to call the Second Protectorate Parliament, which was also dissolved. So after that, Cromwell lived actually quite a quiet life. He didn't actually do much in the very last years of his life. In 1658, he died, which was very sad. So, do you think Cromwell was a good guy or a bad guy? He did some good stuff and he did some not so good stuff. What do you think? If you've got an opinion, leave it in the comments below. I don't think it is as bad as what some people say it is. But then again, that's only my opinion. What do I know? If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to Time Travel TV, and I'll see you next time. Cheerio.